John Kirkby is with us. He's the founder of Christians Against Poverty, and now that ministry is coming to Canada. It emanates out of your story. Tell us.
Yes, yeah, the ministry's been going 17 years, but it actually started a long time before that. When I look back at my life, I can just see God really had his hand on it, although there were many times when you'd have been hard pushed to see that. Yeah.
And why the motivation to help people manage money and help the poor?
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes out of my own life story. I was born into a wonderful family, brought up really well, but had a very challenging kind of early life. My father died when he was 18. My mother, through mental illness, was sectioned and taken away from me at 18, so I was left really on my own. That was the first time I kind of touched on what it is to be pretty lonely, very afraid, obviously mourning the loss of my beautiful father and distressed at the way I lived. I got a job working in the consumer finance industry. I somehow, kid from the wrong side of the tracks, very uneducated, somehow did really well, or did really well in the world's eyes. Very successful, part of a team that would build UK finance companies. I had everything the world says is going to bring you happiness and success, but underneath that veneer, the broken guy I was really, just inside, just hurting and confused and mixed up, was still there, and the result of all that, yeah, it all came home. I lost everything. In the early 90s, I lost my first marriage, my career collapsed, I discovered I had no friends, I was massively in debt, hounded by debt collectors, and I ended up what could only be described as pretty destitute really. Ended up living just in one room with my two little girls, aged 7 and 4, Jasmine and Jessica. I remember months when, after I'd got paid and paid my debts out, you know, I had just a few pounds to live off, struggled really to survive, and it's what poverty does to the inside that kind of, it would be my testimony. It's not just about not having any money, it's not about struggling to actually survive, it's what it does to you internally as a father, seeing your two little girls not being able to put a birthday party on for them, when your two girls realise you're so poor they stop asking you for anything, when no one invites you out, right. You're isolated, broken, lonely, afraid. But in the midst of all that, I met my Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ, but perhaps in a wonderful way it was through Christians who had not just read the Bible or prayed about helping the poor or read about it. They'd kind of decided they were going to help the poor, and that's what I was, me and my two little girls, and they reached out to me through a local church, and I just discovered that, yeah, there was a hope and there was a future, and over a 4-year period, God slowly began to rebuild me, and to be honest, it's 20 years ago, it's still a work in progress. And 4 years later, my career was back online. I was about to get married to my beautiful second wife, Lizzie, and I went into work one day and had one of those moments where I just went, I'm out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to help the poor. Very, very naive, wonderfully naive. I just said, okay, God, let's go do it. Went home, had a chat to Lizzie 3 months before we got married. She said, yep, let's go do it. So we got married in '96, came back from our honeymoon, sat in a small office with a few pounds and said, okay, God, I'm going to go and help the poor. I'm going to use what I've been through to help other people. Please help me. And then 17 years later, the rest, as they often say, is just history.
You're in 1,500 churches, but now you've targeted Canada.
Yep.
Just before we give the profile of debt in Canada and the remedy, let's take a look at this clip that talks about how CAP is making a difference.
One day, I got a payday loan to survive, which started a vicious circle that kept getting worse and worse. Me and Gemma were rowing and arguing about debt, then using drugs to try and forget about it. It was like living in a black hole.
One day, when the pressure of debt just got all too much, I walked into the sea and wanted to end it all. I was in complete turmoil. When I slept, I was tormented. So I panicked and I just didn't want to face it.
One day I had to go and beg for a potato from one of my neighbours. I was so ashamed. When my mum had passed away, I didn't know anything about running households or paying bills. I have severe dyslexia and couldn't understand the numbers and letters.
Those are transformed lives, but we're in a culture, fake it till you make it, credit card nation.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Canada and why your ministry is now coming here and how we can engage everybody.
Yeah, I think first of all we need to be realistic. Canada is, the same as many countries, so let's not be too hard on
Sure.
Canada. We really looked, we've been looking for many years at what we've seen in your nation, and it became obvious to us over the last couple of years that you're, as a nation, suffering exactly the same as all the other nations we're in. So we're in the UK, we're also in Australia and New Zealand, and it's that kind of culture of you can buy it now, and you've got a rapidly expanding, very well put together consumer finance industry, credit cards, loans. Even some of the more unscrupulous lenders are now in your nation, and it's just obvious that as a people you need some help. When we look at the statistics, 1 in 7 of your children is living in poverty.
You're talking about in Canada?
In Canada, over half of your pensioners are still significantly in debt when they retire, and we've already helped over 14 clients here in Canada, and it is exactly the same as everywhere in the world. People who are struggling to feed their children, people being evicted, homes being taken away. I've lost my own home. I know what it is to lose everything. And it's just, something's got to be done. And I think from our point of view, hey, call me naive, but I believe that it's been since the creation of the church in Acts that as a church, we're really supposed to get out there and make a difference in the society we're in. And let me tell you, this society here in Canada needs a change. It needs to change. It needs some men and women of God who've got some different thinking around what makes life worth living, who've got some different thinking around the worth of people, who need to kind of rise up and do something about the poverty in your nation, but do it in Jesus' name. Not just help people out of debt, but also we are Christians Against Poverty. We offer to pray with people. We're not ashamed of the gospel. We only work through churches. We want to bring life transformation work through debt counselling, which we do around the world. 50,000 people have been reached. Since we started. We are world class at changing people's lives through debt counselling. But there's only one person who changes a life completely, as my life was changed, and that's Jesus Christ. And he's to be found in the church, and we need to take that out to the communities. But we cannot do it without empowering the church. But the good news is the church is ready and waiting. We're astonished by what we've seen.
Abraham Lincoln said God must have loved poor people because he made a lot of them. Yeah. And the opposite of poverty is people that are living in excess. So step by step, help people right now that are watching. They can't, they've got multiple credit cards, they have no net worth, they have no money in savings, and they are faking it. How do we get them on the road to recovery?
First of all, far be it for me to disagree with Abraham Lincoln, but God didn't make anybody poor. God's got a heart for the poor. It's society, and it's our lack of care and concern for people. It says in Deuteronomy, there will always be poor in the land, but it's not a badge of honour. It's a badge of shame for a modern society that these things are happening. In terms of how we can help people, the truth is we've just arrived. We've only been here 2 months. We really need to open our debt centres through more churches. So what we really need is the church to come forward. We've been excited already. We've got 17 churches already in the first few months starting to work with us. But ultimately across Canada, we want thousands. We'll need thousands of churches. For anybody listening right now whose lives devastated by debt, the first thing I would say to them is, it's okay. There is a future and there is a hope.
Sure, of course.
What they need to do is just do something. There are some great agencies already here in Canada, many secular, where help can be found. And also we'd say to people that, talk to people around you. The shame and guilt, I know all about that, is sometimes too great. Call to God, allow someone around you to be there to help you. There is a future and there is a hope, but obviously we know that we've got to get there as fast as we can.
Can a layperson in a church in Canada contact your organization and begin a chapter? Tell us how they do that.
Absolutely, please. www.capcanada.org. It's really easy. We're a small team here in Canada, but we're growing all the time. We're desperate to hear from churches and individuals around Canada who want to do something in their community. We've got proven ways of training. We've got systems. This thing will grow as fast as Canada responds to it. But we know God's with us, and we're expecting a great outpouring of that.
Now, let's talk about this book, Nevertheless, the incredible story of one man's mission to change the lives of thousands. This is free and available to people?
Absolutely, yeah.
How do they get it?
Just on the website, www.capcanada.org. We give this book away. I find it quite ironic that a guy who left school virtually uneducated as a dyslexic, God must have a sense of humour that a book could be written that would go 140,000 copies around the world. The book is based, it's very much on a diary. I kept a secret diary for 10 years. It kind of needs to come with a little bit of a health warning. Don't stop halfway through the book. It was grim, and it shows in very real terms what it is to be poor and what it is to struggle, but it also shows the power of God to redeem a life and turn it around to change literally thousands of people.
I remember when a pastor told me at 24, Jerry, you need a raise. And he was indicating that I wasn't tithing. I mean, he got my face.
Yep.
Changed my life.
Yeah.
My wife and I got free by being stewards, and then God made us a big-time channel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where does stewardship come into this? People who are,
Hugely.
quote, ripping off God, and they're suffering because of it.
Hey, yeah, first of all, it's not for me to judge anybody's personal finances and the decisions that they make. That is between them and God. I just need to make sure that my heart and my wife's heart is correct towards money. But what I would say is that one of our programs is called Cap Money. This is a huge program in all the countries that we are, and it'll be huge here in Canada, and that's about giving people kind of education around how they manage money. I believe that the vast majority of people within the church have got a generous heart. If you know God, you can't help being generous. But what happens is they need a system that, again, creates the behaviour that they want, and they need someone to help them understand about how they spend, how they save, how they give. And we've seen literally thousands upon thousands of people have once given the tools and given some encouragement to think a little bit differently about what they've got, what they buy, how they spend, how they save. If we can, in some way, enrich people's lives by bringing God's stewardship into their lives, then I'll be a very happy guy. And again, having seen it around the world now, I can't help it. I just believe God's an awesome God. I believe He's able to do abundantly more than you or I could ever dream or imagine. This nation needs change. The church needs to be part of that, and we want to be part of that change. And I just thank God that I'm here, and I'm looking forward over the next 10 years to seeing this nation changed by a bunch of ordinary people who love God and a church that wants to make a difference.
John, welcome to Canada.
Hey.
And again, just give the website so people can get the book.
Yeah, it's www.capcanada.org, and there's a group of people waiting to.
There's no freedom like financial freedom.